Okay, welcome everybody. I'm Jen Bradovich. I'm Director of Exhibitions and Programs at IPCNY, and I'm so glad you've joined us tonight for our first Artist Conversation of the year in conjunction with our current exhibition, Unfinished, New Prints 2022 Winter, selected by Queer Archive Work. New Prints is our open call program bringing together print-based works from the previous 12 months. And tonight you'll hear from Katie Kaplan, Anukriti Kaushik, and Erin Wohletz, who all currently have work on view in the show. You can see Unfinished in our Chelsea exhibition space through March 26, and you can also view the show virtually and explore the artworks on our website, ipcny.org. Tonight's event has auto-generated captions. Turn those on by hitting the CC button at the bottom of your screen. The talk is also being recorded, and it will be available in about a week or so. So let's get going. Let's not waste any more time. Everyone can turn their cameras on and join me on screen. Hello, hello, hi. I'm so excited to welcome you all here tonight and also to have with us Nafis M. White, who's part of Queer Archive Work and played a really big role in the selection and installation of the works. So thank you, Nafis, for moderating. Welcome, Erin and Anukriti and Katie. For folks at home, you've been to our talks before, you know that we love it when you participate, so please feel free to send questions using the Q&A. The public chat will also be open and you can contribute to the conversation there or say hi, share thoughts, that kind of thing. Finally, there is a short survey at the end. Thanks for sharing your feedback there. So I'm going to turn it over to Nafis to kick things off, and I will see you all at the end of the program. Thank you and enjoy.
All right. Hello, everyone. I am bubbling and so excited to be a part of this. Thank you for making time in your day to join us. Welcome to Unfinished at IPCNY. My name is Nafis M. White. I am an interdisciplinary artist, sculptor, printmaker, photographer, and I am also a proud member of Queer Archive Work, affectionately known as QAW. I am one of 3 curators for this powerful exhibition, along with QAW founder Paul Solelis and David Kim. We lovingly, and I mean lovingly, selected 49 works from 36 dynamic artists to best demonstrate our call for this exhibition titled Unfinished. Queer Archive Work is a nonprofit library, publishing studio, and residency serving Providence, Rhode Island and beyond, and was incorporated nearly to the day on March 2nd in 2020. I want to start our conversation tonight by reading the opening paragraph of the exhibition statement to anchor this talk, and then I will introduce each of these incredible artists, and we'll get a chance to look at their work, breathe it, be it, and then talk with them in-depthly about their process. So, Unfinished, New Prints, Winter 2022. Capitalism rewards perfection as defined by those in power. This is especially true in the art world, where the demand for smooth resolution and predictability creates unsustainable standards for who or what is allowed to be considered successful. Too often, artists are judged along values centered on heteronormativity and white supremacy, easily reproducible results, collectability, exceptionalism, and the illusion of meritocracy. New Prints 2022 Winter steps away from traditions of polish and perfection by making space for incompleteness, rawness, messiness, illegibility, risk, vulnerability, non-linearity, care, queerness, and non-normativity. Within the loose theme of Unfinished, we push up against capitalism's relentless drive towards market-based success by making way for other kinds of stories. New Prints 2022 Winter includes actual works in progress, abandoned work, failed work, and work that is simply unfinished due to the myriad aspects and conditions artists experience while living and working during crisis. The radical turbulence of racial injustice, police brutality, class inequity, global pandemic, and climate emergency. So before I get going in, and I encourage you to all read the full statement because it is beautiful. Thank you to Megan Duffy, Jen Bradovich, Emma Wang, and all the staff and interns at IPCNY who made this possible, as well as funders and supporters. So let's get into the art, because that is what we're here for. I can't wait to introduce these dynamic folks to you all. And really quick, just to set you all up, I'm going to introduce each artist, give you the title of the work, and then they're going to take it away. So, Anukriti Kaushik. Preferred pronouns are they, them, lives and works in Boston, Massachusetts. Title of the work. I was to strip off my coarseness and ripen into a woman of war, led by a militia of my mothers, draped in delicate dupattas. Made in 2021, acrylic relief print, and found objects on cardboard, a large scale work at 71 inches and 35. Also tonight, you're going to hear from Erin Wohletz. Preferred pronouns, they, them. Lives and works in Knoxville, Tennessee. The title of their work is Evidence, comprised of mezzotint, lithography, relief print, screen print, handmade paper, sticky notes, graphite, stickers, composition notebook cover, and gouache. Made in 2021 at 29.5 inches by 25. And then our last artist tonight, Katie Kaplan. Preferred pronouns, they, them. Lives and works in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. The title, Warm Blanket Over the Soul. How can one blame those who seek to escape the pain of this world? Made in 2021, screen print, monoprint, relief print, dye, embroidery, and digital print, unfabric, and thread and quilt batting. A powerful work at 38 inches by 38. So why don't we start with Anukriti?
Hi, everyone. I have a presentation ready and I'm going to share my screen and start. Sorry, give me 1 second. Just trying to figure this out. Do you think you could share it for me because I'm not being able to share it?
Yes, no problem.
Thank you.
Okay, everyone, bear with us a little. Yeah, just a few sec. Nafis, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, the fact that we have technology to bridge and do this and have backup to the backup. I mean, we're gathered in this beautiful way. And so, we shall be patient. I have seen the work. You all who are joining us have not yet. You're in for a treat.
Okay, thank you. So this is the piece that is on view right now. I think before I start talking about this piece, I want to tell you a little bit about my own practice. I'm a multidisciplinary visual artist. I predominantly work in drawing, painting, writing, experimental video, text, and I also dabble a little bit in curatorial work. And I want to say that all of my visual work is heavily influenced by writing and reading. So a lot of my work is, like all of the drawings and the visual imagery that I create is deeply influenced by poems I write or text I write. So can you move on to the next slide, please? Thank you. So this piece was influenced by this poem I wrote last year called Survivor's Guilt. And to kind of talk about this piece, I think I would need to talk about the work that I was doing before this, which is on the next slide. Can you guys hear me properly? Or is it, okay, cool. So this is what I was working on before. And it's a large scale piece. This is my first like huge piece. It involved a lot of detailing. It was a lot of like repetitive mark making. And, you know, as much as I enjoy, you know, being very like creating my own rules and, you know, making work that is very, I would say repetitive, like that is the only way I would define this mark making. It was kind of getting to me and I was, you know, I needed a break. And I just moved into my new studio space. So I was kind of looking to like inaugurate it with like something that was going to be like, you know, fun and like expansive and just kind of crazy. Can you go back to the second slide, the one before this? Thank you. Or the one before, yeah. Thank you. So I kind of went back to this poem and I was thinking about a lot of the poetry that I write is based on like imagery in my head. So I was thinking about how I can kind of reinvent this as a visual work. And that is where the piece that is at IPCNY came in. I didn't have any material because I had just moved in. I was just, you know, unpacking and stuff. So it was just this huge piece of cardboard lying around. And I just started like experimenting and I was like, I'll see where this takes me. And it's kind of like a conglomeration of a lot of materials, and even in like the physical, like the materiality, you can see like it's very process based, and it was similar in the making where I was kind of processing my own emotions and my own kind of, you know, my ideas around gender and around beauty and around what, you know, gender performance means to me in relation to this poem. So that is kind of where this piece came in. And this is also the first piece that I made while experimenting with kind of printmaking. I'm really interested in the idea and like the physical process of printmaking, and I kind of wanted to get into that. So yeah, this is kind of where this piece came in. And then can you move forward, please? Thank you. So can you move forward one more slide and one more? Thank you. So I kind of want to talk about the process behind that piece, which is kind of influenced by these two works that I did a while ago. These were kind of based off of a palimpsest way of making. So a lot of it is like working on layer over layer over layer. And it's like, you know, you add a layer, you erase a layer, you add a layer, you erase a layer using like multitudes of mediums and like materials. So that's kind of where I was going with the piece, where I was kind of, you know, adding like, I don't know, like a layer of pastels and then erasing it and then going over it with like acrylic. So it's kind of like a fun process. And I think that's where like I saw the call for art, like the proposal from Queer Arts Archive while I was making it. So I feel like it was kind of like the perfect timing. And in my head, I was just like, I have to apply because this fits perfectly. Like there's nothing else that I could kind of give, you know? And then can you go back, please? Thank you. And then one more slide. Thank you. And then kind of moving on from that, in my like broader practice, I want to talk about this piece because this is, I think this piece has kind of inaugurated a newer way of making for me. A lot of the work which I'll be sharing in like the next few slides that I was making before this was kind of leading up to this. I am a very, I don't know, I don't want to say anal, but I'm a very like controlling like person in my practice. Like I like to make a lot of rules for myself and I like to do things a certain way. And I think that is where this piece was coming in, is this like, you know, grandioseness that I wanted to encapture and that I look to encapture in like a lot of my other works too. And I was kind of thinking about the female form and how she has been kind of represented in media, especially Indian media, because that's what I have watched my whole life and I've grown up watching, and how much, you know, the Indian like female figure kind of lacks autonomy, lacks like self-agency, lacks, sorry, there's noise outside. But yeah, the female figure kind of, you know, doesn't, is never shown as an independent female figure. And when she is, she's demonized for it. You know, so I kind of wanted to reverse that and show a female figure that was, monstrous and huge and kind of like crazy looking, with like a gun, which is, I think, the most powerful, like, I don't know, this idea of violence is very enticing when it is given to someone who's been robbed of self-agency forever. It's got this idea of like self-protection and self-agency that I was trying to grapple with. So I think that's where this piece came in. And again, this was motivated by a poem I wrote, which is on the next slide, that I wrote before this piece. And it kind of just, I don't know, I was thinking of it separate from this poem, but once I started creating it, it fit perfectly together. So I don't know if you'll have time to read all of it. I have a lot of writing. But yeah, if you don't have time, I have a lot of this work on my website too, so you can check it out there. But yeah, I'll give you like maybe like a minute to read if you want to.
I was going to ask selfishly, could you read?
Oh yeah, of course.
Would you please honor us with that? Because it's powerful writing and the imagery is just like, so I'm going to,
Yeah, of course. Do you want me to read this one or do you want me to read Survivor's Guilt, which was the influencing poem for the piece at IPCNY?
Kind of want to hear this one.
Okay, sure, yeah. So this piece is titled Mrs. Militancy. Mother, mother, mother militant, sword drawn, unchained, spitting sweet dynamite, untamed, living her life backwards, hell-bent on making it happen. Mother militant, how do I cease to feel broken, like I'm lacking, like I'm short of a full sentence? Mother militant, does it stop, the travel of pain through the passage of time, footed in the seams of my bladder, treading along the length of the spine, spasming at my touch? Where does it live? Mother militant, why should I feel like a desolate kingdom devoid of your one-autonomous embrace? Mother militant, teach me to be belligerent brave. Teach me to crave my own self with volition. Mother militant, take my tears and make them a string of pearls that I wear and flaunt so I can declaim with pride. I am cracked for a reason. And I feel like, so the word one-autonomous is not a real word. I just created it. But the way I look at this piece is kind of the answer to all the questions in this poem in a way, if that makes sense. I kind of look at her like, like a goddess that is watching over me in a way. But yeah, moving on.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you. Wow.
So yeah, these are two pieces I made a while ago. Again, they were like very, very process based. Took like 3 years to make because I kept, revisiting them and going back. And then initially, these were both one single like long piece of paper that I cut in half. And the one on the right is woven together. So I cut them into strips and then wove them in together. So yeah, it was an interesting like experimental thing that kind of made me try new things and be able to like incorporate it into other works of art. And then the next one, please. Thank you. And then these, starting here, I want to talk about how mark making and the female figure is kind of like incorporated together in a lot of my work. So this is a piece that I did a while ago in 2019, where it was, I made it right before my trip to India, where I was on the metro and I was just, it was just full of like, there's like a women's section in the metro where it's reserved only for women and no like cis man can enter. So I was just sitting there and I was looking and I kind of just ended up taking a picture of these 3 women because it was so interesting to me. For some reason, it was like the most normal thing, but I just wanted to like, draw them. And I did that, and it's completely with, it's only made with ballpoint pen. And yeah, it was back then, it was like the largest piece I made. I had been working pretty small before then. And it was really interesting to kind of experiment with mark making, and like the texture of the mark making was very enticing to me. And also like the minimalness of just using a pen and nothing else and working in monochrome was really interesting. Yeah. Next one, please. Thank you. And then this is something, the rest of my work is during the pandemic or, post-pandemic. So this is a work that I made initially when the pandemic started. And again, I was low on material. I was just like bored out of my mind, didn't know what to do. So I just had these 2 pieces of paper that my professor had given me, and I kind of stuck them together, and I was like, okay, I'll see what I can do with it. And then this piece is, I was thinking a lot about Gestalt theory and how like the whole is greater than sum total of its parts. But that's what the theory is. But I was thinking about how I can kind of make small marks and see how they kind of add up as a whole. So I think you can't see in this image, but it's pretty intricate. Like the hair is just like line after line after line. And I don't know, it was also interesting to just create figures of women that based out of my imagination that I'd never seen before. So it's this meant to replicate body hair. And yeah, it's also just the repetition is very cathartic for me personally. It helps me like with my anxiety and like other things. So it was interesting to kind of just go into it and like have it be like the process of making be a meditative process. And then, yeah, and then this was Wanton Woman, which is where the word wantonymous came from. I kind of got very obsessive about the word at one point, and I was using it everywhere. But this piece was made for my senior year for a college course final. And it was, I don't know what gave birth to it. I think I was similarly like the image with the 3 women. I was kind of looking to make work just using a pen, because at that point it was something that felt like right to me, and I also didn't have a lot of material to use. So, and it was just, it's what made sense. But I was again trying to experiment with themes of self-agency and like reclamation. And these figures are supposed to be, so that's supposed to be me, the one in the back. And then the one in the front, in the center, is supposed to be my mother. But after making it, I realized she ended up looking a lot like me because I'd used myself as a reference photo. So I think it was interesting to kind of see that happen, and a lot to think about. And then the background is supposed to be my balcony from home. So I think a lot of it was just kind of like, putting things in my head together. I had a lot of time to think. And then this poem kind of gave birth to this poem, this piece kind of gave birth to this poem later on, which is titled A Declaration. And insurgents will be led by our bodies, the compass that performs the pious wanton exodus. So I wrote this while there was like a huge protest movement happening in India that was opposing these bills that were being passed by the government. And a lot of these Muslim women were coming out and protesting, and it was a beautiful thing to watch, because it was like the middle of winter, and there was like, it was cold, and women were coming out and like fighting. And Muslim women are deeply marginalized in our country, so it was just a very empowering thing to see and support. So that's kind of where the poem was born from. Next slide, please. Thank you. And then last summer, I did a residency at Masmoka, which is where I created this piece. Again, it was created in conjunction with this poem. So I wrote the poem first, and then this piece is how I visualized the poem to look like. So I kind of, Janamdin is like birthday in Hindi, but I kind of see it as me rebirthing myself in a way, or like a new me, or like a more like a more me, if that makes sense, or like letting go of my past in a way. Again, it was just used it was made using just graphite, a lot of like single stroke things, like marks that are supposed to resemble hair. I ended up using like 2 different pencils entirely while making this. So that was also interesting, like going through the process of like mark making, and then, sharpening my pencil, and then mark making. There's like so much repetition involved in like every aspect of the piece, which I really enjoyed. And yeah, the person in the middle is supposed to be me, if you can't already tell. Yeah. And I can read this poem too if there is enough time.
This is a good thing to say. So we have maybe enough time for the poem and one more if you can believe it. So, but please, would love.
Okay, yeah. So this poem is titled Samsara. The word reincarnate lets out a bitter taste on my tongue, an incongruous excuse mass-produced by puppet gods overturned by hippie herds. Though I will say I am birthed twice in this lifetime, a loophole I discovered to cheat God. The first time by holy chance of my mother, a god herself. The second time I birthed myself, as thighs glistened, I uncoiled into my arms, fluid lungs heaving, memories of the past leaving. And since that holy hour, she invites herself into my dreamscape, and I hold her, close to my eight-year-old self, fur-feeling fervous and ferocious, a fiend of mama's girlhood dreams. I have mocked God in my second life. Yeah. So it was kind of just, this process of rebirthing myself and becoming a more authentic version of myself. And then can you move on, please? Yeah, so I'm assuming we don't have a lot of time, so I'm kind of gonna run through this. But the next slide is a mask I made which is called the Nozzle Mask, which is based off a lot of masks that are placed outside Indian households to kind of not get the evil eye, if that makes sense. So it's made from paper mache, synthetic hair, wool, a lot of different things. There's like fake eyelashes, and you can wear it. And it was, and then after making this mask, if you move on to the next slide, I created this experimental animation called Death of the Woman. I'm not gonna play it because I think it's gonna take too long, and it says you need permission to view this video. But it's on my website and it's on Vimeo if you want to check it out. But it's called Death of the Woman, and it's an experimental animation that I made with taking a picture of myself in the mask. And then, a lot of different things happened. There's like drawings that I rotoscoped in order to animate them. There's like a background that I made using, again, palimpsest techniques. And it's kind of it's influenced by Legacy Russell's Glitch Feminism. I read that and I was like, this is like an insane book. I have to write how I'm feeling about this. So I did that, and then it turned into this animation. And it kind of just talks about rejecting the binary and kind of the gender performativity that involves being a woman, and how I want to kill that part of myself. And yeah, if that makes sense. And then moving on. And then this is the last thing I want to share. It's a publication I curated almost a year back as like my senior thesis in college. It's called The Body, a Beast, a Corporal Compass. It includes work of 19 different trans/queer /NB artists, both from the States, but mostly from India and South Asia. And it is just like a lot of different work. It's visual, it's poetry, it's nonfiction. And the cover is designed by this incredible artist called Preeti Khalik. And it was an insanely incredible and learning experience for me to curate this. I got to meet some of the most incredible people. Again, it's available on my website if you want to check it out. Mm-hmm. And it was, yeah, that's my whole presentation. Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Powerful work. I do encourage you all, please go to their website. Please follow all of these fantastic artists on social media. Thank you so much. Thank you for sharing so much of yourself. We honor you certainly, and see you and appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say, sorry, my website is privatized right now because I think I need to pay for a fee or something, but it'll be available soon. So you can check it out later.
Okay.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. So we are going to welcome now Erin Wohletz, and I'm so excited for you to share all of the things with us. So without further ado, please take it away.
I'm going to pull up my presentation. Look, do you see a slide? Yes. I'm going to keep going.
We see slides. Yes, yes, yes.
Because I can't see you now. Okay, so I'm just going to talk sort of briefly about the larger body of work that the piece comes from, and then I'll show you the piece in a little bit. So my current body of work consists of what I'm calling a series of visual essays about my battle with non-binary queerness. And my self-discovery of queerness has come from a lot of internal struggle and sort of argument. I found myself at a crossroads, which I call sort of my XY axis of queerness, which is sort of, if you think about it being like gay, straight, male, female, I just kind of like am somewhere in the middle. And that's the point from which I investigate and I argue with myself. The argument, am I or am I not a liar? As the topic is multifaceted, it requires a multi-pronged approach. Each piece in this series seeks to approach this debate from a different angle in order to come to a conclusion which takes into account history, memory, risk, deception, and feeling. These prints and collages are informed by the traditional materials, processes, language, and function of naturalist prints. And naturalist prints were created as images of scientific study and education. Animals and plants were drawn in order to define and gain understanding of their nature. However, instead of an animal or botanical specimen, the analyzed subject in my work is a page from a notebook. Notebooks are spaces for private argument and discovery, problems being worked out and not completed. And in this body of work, I lay out these pages for the viewer to investigate and analyze. And that was something with this exhibition that really struck home with the idea of unfinished, this idea of like a workspace, which is something that I work with a lot. Symbolism is and continues to be important to the queer community. Often double-coded, it allows and continues to allow members of the community to communicate with the in-crowd whilst eluding outsiders. This is apparent throughout queer art history. LGBTQ+ persons use symbology within acceptable works to talk about their inner feelings or socially unacceptable queerness. Many of these historically queer symbols appear within my work and then are explained and recognized within the index. I seek to recognize and continue this visual queer history. Which brings me to deception. Often in my work, I have sought to deceive the viewer, or at least hide from the viewer. Symbolism has often served this goal. I could create a work which, much like a page, had two faces, an outward-facing, confusing landscape of symbols, which could only be interpreted by my internal index, an index which I was very careful to reveal incrementally and only at times of my choosing. In this body of work, it was important for me to include an index which explains symbols and removed my ability to hide. And I'll show some images of that later on. Something which has come up a lot in this work is the sticky note. And when we were asked to sort of talk about materiality, this is something I wanted to speak on. And I often get asked questions about. I'm really intrigued by the sticky note because of its temporary nature. I think it's really interesting to think of an archival print work as being this permanent, long-lasting thing, but the sticky note as being this temporary thing, something that only lasts maybe a few years. And I'm really interested to see how this work decays, but in like a very specific way. So within the work, I often use sticky notes as to think of as reminders simply, but also as things that I wanted to remember now or to tell myself now, but things that I wanted to set aside in the future, things that I was planning to leave behind. So like, you know, the traffic cone being like caution, me telling myself, you know, caution, don't go any further, but then, you know, in the future that will go away. This is another piece from the exhibition, which I thought had some interesting materiality. This piece was created, I was thinking about when I came out, and in many ways, this exhibition was a coming out, and because it removed my ability to hide, but I wanted to make a work that replicated, I guess, the feelings that I had about coming out, this idea of having to make a big leap without knowing what the consequences of that would be. So in order to create this piece, the graphite drawing of the 96 eyes that's in the background was actually created first without anything on top. And then this face that you can see here is trace monotype. So that was created by laying the entire graphite drawing face down onto a slab of ink, and then you draw backwards onto the back in order to pick up ink in selective areas. And I was really interested in that act of like spending months and months and months thinking about this act, being worried about this act, and putting all this time and effort, and then, you know, putting this work face down. It could have come up completely black, but instead, you know, things worked out, thankfully, and I was able to create this image over the course of like 6 or 7 laying down on layers of trace monotype. This piece, which is also behind me, is called Rube Goldberg. With this piece, this was what I call a companion piece. All the work in the exhibition was exhibited in pairs of 2, which you can see on my website, the sort of companion pieces that go with which piece. And this was the companion piece that went along with Evidence, which is the work from the exhibition. And I was really, with both of these pieces, thinking about, I guess, what constitutes queer evidence. You know, thinking about coming out, I think often as queer people, we're asked to provide evidence to others of our queerness, to be like, you know, I'm coming out to you, here's my proof that I am what I say that I am. And as a non-binary person, I found it really difficult to have that evidence or to provide that evidence. And I found myself, like many other queer people, sort of waiting for a moment in my life where I would have evidence, like waiting to have like a girlfriend, or, you know, something like that, where I could like be like, here's the reason, here's my proof that I am what I say that I am. And so Rube Goldberg, I was really thinking about childhood and these sort of memories, and the ways in which really the only evidence that I have is a memory and a sequence of memories, and how do I talk to the audience about that? This is the piece from the exhibition Evidence. And this was a piece that kind of came to me out of nowhere. And I was really excited about it. The whole piece is actually constituted from refuse from my studio. So it's all my work is normally based in collage. And so these are all elements which were cut at one point, things were cut from them at another point, and they were just pushed into a corner and left alone for a long time. And at the same time, I had also just finished working in a natural history museum, working down in collections, making so these collections boxes and trays. And I was thinking about how I would, like, as an archaeologist going into my own studio, how I would like separate out objects and try to analyze them from a distance, which is how this piece was created. So that's why the medium, it is so far gone and diverse. And sort of an interesting fact about this piece is the background is actually a graphite rubbing of a cutting mat. So it's all of the cuts and evidence that was carved into this sort of self-healing mat over the course of the exhibition are then sort of laid bare in the background. This is another, got really into cutting mats for a little while. This is another piece about cutting mat. And this was from the final chapter in the exhibition, which I talked about as being a chapter on shame, which was a tough thing to think about. I had kind of the purpose of the exhibition was I almost had like backed myself into a corner, because, you know, I, like many other people, like to run from my problems. And I was really resisting coming out because I was really worried about it. But sort of a year ahead of time, this was from my master's thesis in grad school, and I wanted to finally just talk about what I wanted to talk about and not like pretend that I was talking about something else. But I was definitely approaching the final month towards when the exhibition was going to occur. I was feeling this oncoming dread of being like, oh crap, now that I've dug myself a very deep hole, and now I'm gonna have to lie in it and see what comes of it. So this piece is about sort of that fear. Another piece, this is a rare non-print work from me called I'm Rusty. And this was the first piece that I made after grad school and being out on my own in the world for a while. And I was really thinking about now that I am out, what does that mean to me? And like, how do I feel about navigating romantic relationships, navigating the world as like an out person? And I just sort of really related to the Tin Man. I was really feeling this like sense of being like rusty or being frozen in place where, you know, I've been in this mental space for so long, it felt kind of strange to move past it. And I almost felt like I had to like loosen myself up over time. And I think I'm still doing that. I mean, I'm only a year out from my master's thesis. Which brings me to the index, which was something which, although it had been planned to occur all along with the exhibition, was something that took a really long time to finally actually put together and show to the world. And I think that's probably because it was so personal and it really felt like I was really bearing my soul, and I was very nervous about it, which I think is reasonable. And what the index does is you can see that it's 6 different rows. And so each row was designed to sort of define symbols from the exhibition in different ways. So the top row was kind of, it's hard to see in this image, but it was a cartoon image or a simplified image, that being the idea that like the first way in which we define something is by its simplest form, by our snap judgment. The second line was a map of symbols and all the symbols that they appeared next to, thinking about how we are defined by the relationships, by what we are near. The third was what I was calling a societal definition, but it was just like a Webster's dictionary version of all the symbols, just a really straight, clear-cut definition. The fourth row, which you can see more clearly here, which has the sticky note images, was a true and honest telling of what my symbolic interpretation of symbols was, but with all queerness or all references to queerness redacted. And then the drawings that you can see on sticky notes are taken from images from queer art history, queer art historical prints, but cropped so that none of the sort of queer elements are present. And then the next line was a true and honest telling with nothing redacted, which is watching people go up to my exhibition and look really close on that line makes my heart race. And then the final line was left blank as an ode to sort of, this is an in progress thing, and thinking about sort of how, you know, leaving myself room to change, room to grow. Here's another image of the sort of text. And it was interesting, I exhibited this work, well, it's on exhibition in North Dakota right now, and it was interesting. I had a student come up to me and ask me if I had intentionally written different lines in different styles of handwriting. And I realized it just truly, I think, from like levels of fear. Like you can see this like top line, which is the symbolic one, is like very clean, very like nice tight writing, and like as you descend it gets like a little bit more shaky, worried. And that brings me to my most recent body of work, which is much smaller. And I've been really interested recently in thinking about singular symbols and how I can sort of best describe them or like fully lay out a singular symbol. So like on the left was a piece about Pinocchio, which is becoming maybe my favorite thing ever, even though I'm sort of reluctant to use Disney imagery in my work. But the idea of Pinocchio being a liar, a visual, is something that's very important to me, but also being a real boy. What does that mean to be a real boy? And then on the right, I have bird. And I was thinking a lot about, bird as a colloquialism for a woman, and what it means to, I guess, kill off my own femininity. This was a small songbird that died by hitting its body against the window of my studio. And I was drawn to draw it. So there's two more pieces on the left is Apollo. And I was thinking about story of Apollo and Hyacinthus is sort of a Greek myth that has a lot of queerness, and sort of Apollo turns his loved one Hyacinthus into a flower to let him live forever, and it's become a really important symbol of like love between men. And then on the right, page 8 is a piece about plaid. I have sort of like a funny anecdote from my time in high school that I often tell, which is I remember very distinctly I was in marching band and I was sitting inside with my clarinet talking to the other clarinet players. And I remember everyone was talking about the upcoming dance. And I was like, I turned to the girl next to me and I was like, I don't understand why no one ever invites me to these dances. What's going on? And she just turned to me point blank and said, because everyone knows you're gay. And I remember just being like, what? Because I didn't know I was gay. And I was just shocked. And it was one of those like moments in my life where I was just thinking a lot about like, what is it, what do people decide makes you gay? And like, it comes down to like, I wear a lot of plaid. And I was like, maybe you were right, but also what? So that's what that piece is about. Also, I didn't mention this before, but I was born and raised in Las Vegas, Nevada. So recently in my work, I'm thinking a lot about Las Vegas is a place to grow up because it is like the campiest place on earth, but it's also run when I was a child by a lot of sort of closeted queer performers like Liberace, Siegfried and Roy, these kind of performers that were obviously queer, but were never outspoken about it. And I've been thinking a lot about how that has impacted my vision of queerness. And that's sort of the end of my presentation. Hope I didn't speak too fast.
Oh, no.
One more thing to talk about while I'm thinking about it.
Sure.
Can you see this?
Yes.
Website. This is my website. If anyone out here in the audience is a queer printmaker, I have this website called thefutureisqueer.com, which you can click on. And it's a lovely, it'll load a directory of queer printmakers.
Amazing.
A bunch of people on here. And you can click on people and it talks about them, you can read about them, which is awesome. And if you want to join, just read the FAQ. It's really easy to join. I'll add it to the website if you would like to be added.
The website is in the chat. It has been added. Jen added it. Wow. Erin. Yes. Again, a delight. I just want to say, just thank you for your vulnerability, your honesty, your, taking us through all of this really, intensive mapping and legibility. But, also, and I say this a lot, like, show me your work and I'll tell you who you are. And your work is generous. Your work is very generous. And I just appreciate that. So thank you. We are getting peppered with some Q&A. So if people want to add a couple more, we're going to try and get to them all. And now I want to bring on our last artist for this talk is Katie Kaplan, whose work, also just, took my heart, when all the work went up, and I mean, my goodness. So please take it away and introduce us to all of the things that you do.
Hello, everyone. I'm just going to go ahead and share my screen. I am so thankful to be here with you all today. Let's see. All right. Can you all see my first slide? Okay, great. So I'm going to start off the talk by just talking about some recent work and some collaborations and projects that I've done. And then I'm going to go kind of more into how my identity is kind of like in my work and how it kind of affects and comes up in a lot of my pieces. So, hi, I'm Katie. I'm a multidisciplinary artist, but my core is really in printmaking and fibers. So this piece that you're seeing here, this is the piece that's in the exhibition, unfinished, and it's titled "Warm Blanket Over the Soul. How can one blame those who seek to escape the pain of this world?" So this piece is really a response to the discourse going on around harm reduction and addiction and recovery within communities and individuals affected by the opioid crisis, and by those people who love people who use and have used drugs, and people who use and have used drugs. Here I'm kind of like looking at the necessity of deploying harm reduction ethos and specific tools like naloxone, pictured here, which is an overdose reversal drug, while also considering the necessity of promoting recovery and mutual aid to help heal people from psychic, traumatic, and spiritual pain that are a lot of which is kind of like the root causes of addiction, to hold people in their darkest moments, which is where the phrase "help your local junkie kick" comes in. So this is my first quilt I've made, and I was drawn to quilting partially for its rich historical activist background, especially in American abolitionist mutual aid and history. A lot of that took place right here in Philadelphia, where I am. And also for kind of like just like what a quilted object inspires. It inspires warmth and coziness and comfort, which in a lot of ways mirrors kind of like the soothing effect of opioids on the physical body and the mind, and also look towards giving some comfort in that kind of super messy, painful, challenging work surrounding addiction. And on top of that, I'm a printmaker who primarily prints on textiles. So I have kind of like endless scraps of fabric and misprints on fabric that I've been carrying around with me for 10 years because I like it and I don't want to get rid of it. So quilting really lends itself well to my practice in that way. I'm just going to show two kind of like close-ups from this quilt. So I originally made this painting before I had the idea for the quilt. And I wanted to, with the painting, I wanted to inspire compassion and love in people around drug users and addiction. And the decorative softness of the painting is kind of the treatment that I chose for that purpose. For me personally, it's been like a long journey for me to move away from anger and pain and move towards more openness and love surrounding addiction, and just to see how critical it is to show kindness and give support rather than feeling like abjection and showing disdain or rejection. So the embroidered block on the other side of the slide reads, "Help your local junkie kick," which is a phrase that's borrowed from the work of subversive 1970s Bay Area press Zephyrus Image, who, among other activities, printed broadsides and posted them on telephone poles around Berkeley. And yeah, I just really was super into their work. I saw it in one of my favorite books. But just to go back to the slide for a second, I also just wanted to talk about the kind of like the two quilt blocks that are in the corners. With these, I was looking to do kind of like an abstract representation of bringing the shadow into the light, of emerging of kind of like a psychological kind of Jungian sense, but also in a way of our society, kind of how our society is currently functioning, with individuals kind of cast into the margins and bringing those individuals into the light. All right, so this is a selection of work that I installed back in the fall, and it's titled 2020 to 2021. And it's mostly a collection of protest and mutual aid posters and banners I made during that time period. And a lot of them are collaborative works that I made with other groups and other people. And just pieces that kind of like spoke to that moment. I mean, this is what I was making during those years. And all of them had kind of like a specific place or a function where they existed. For example, the End White Silence banner was hung at an experimental textile public exhibition space outside a house in South Philadelphia, organized by artist Heather Raquel Phillips. So this banner was really a call to my fellow white people to end silence and complicity surrounding racial injustice and white supremacy. Here, I'm kind of trying to like present the text in this hypnosis of shimmering fabrics, kind of coaxing like a persuasive magic into the banner. Again, I'm using like color and form, kind of like leveraging them to elicit an intended, like my intended response from the viewer. I was also really happy. It just felt really good to put all of this together, to try, for me, to process like just to see it together, to process like what the hell just happened over the past 2 years. And here's like two just kind of close-ups of some of the smaller pieces. So I'll show just a few slides. I'm not going to show everything that's in there, but just a few slides. These are two prints I made in collaboration with the People's Paper Co-op, which is an art and advocacy project based in Philly, which amplifies the voices and the art and the stories of formerly incarcerated women. So with this first piece over here, Today I Am Free, I made a screen print based on the images and poetry that the women in the group created. And it's printed on paper they made from shredded criminal records. So a big group of artists did the same thing, and a set of prints was made and then sold to raise money to bail out women and caregivers on Mother's Day from jail. And the second piece is also a collaboration with People's Paper Co-op. Definitely look them up. They're a really awesome group. Great people doing awesome work. And for this one, we made it into like a silkscreen and a risograph to raise money for a billboard on the Pennsylvania Turnpike, advocating ending death by incarceration. And this was organized by a Pittsburgh group called Let's Get Free. And I'll also just say I am from Pittsburgh, and Let's Get Free is a really awesome organization also to check out. And here's two gouache paintings I made during the time. One of them is a COVID safety poster for kids that was put up during these like Philly events called Philly Play Streets, where they'd go onto, the city would like go onto a block and like create all these activities for kids. So it was like a COVID safety poster. And the other one is a graphic I made for the Philadelphia Sex Worker Relief Fund for their fundraising. So for me, like making images for mutual aid projects and activist projects is an important part of how I see myself fitting into the movement for collective liberation, especially with mutual aid and care. That really feels to me like a clear vision for kind of getting to that liberation. Okay, and another banner that was hanging up in that original kind of like spread that I showed you was this banner that said, "All eyes on PA, the whole world is watching." So here are some of those banners in action during the 2020 election. I collaborated with a very large group of artists and organizers to create banners and puppets, giant puppets, in preparation for the drama that we all assumed was going to unfold and did unfold during the 2020 election. In case there was, of course, there was like this contested election. So these banners were activated outside of the convention center in Philly, where, they were counting kind of like the last votes coming in. And it was just this really beautiful protest. And that's kind of like where those banners lived on the street. So I just wanted to show these pieces to kind of like highlight how sometimes I'll take a work and feel the need to like revisit it and transform it. So in this case, the original screen print I made was kind of about the beauty and the value of trans and queer life and love. But later on down the line, I wanted to rework the piece for distribution out to people via like wheat paste. And then it was in this kind of like free publication. So I felt I needed like a little bit more like straightforward text to it, which is when I changed the text to "Fight for Trans, Queer, and Femme Futures." All right, so these are photos from an installation titled "A Spell for Frivolity." And with this installation, I was really thinking about my textile pieces serving as kind of like tactile and sensual proclamations, elevating and embracing the decorative, the ultra girly, and the magical aspects of queer femininity, challenging the notion that femininity is contrived, wasteful, disposable, and frivolous. You may have noticed there's a lot of kind of like plants, plant imagery in my work, and I really find endless inspiration from the natural world. And in this case, we can look at the natural world and see that adornment is not superficial, that decoration and femme beauty are methods of communication, power, and survival. Okay, so these images are from an ongoing project, an ongoing series, I guess I'd call it, titled "Banners for Dyke Witches and Other Accomplices." So I'm using witch really very broadly here. Can be like a kitchen witch, sex witch, gender witch. The witch takes many shapes. And I make these to distribute out to people, for people to hang in their homes as a reminder or as, protection. I've made so many of these. I love making them, and I love seeing them in people's homes and that people get to enjoy them. All right, this piece is titled "Princess of My Own Castle Blanket." And I think I wanted to show this piece just to talk about how in my work, I'm really into indulgence in material and gratuitous kind of color and pattern, really leaning into abundance and decadence, escapism and magic. And in a way, that's kind of like an expression of my sexuality and my identity, where language kind of falls short for me. Yeah, I would say yes, I'm queer, but that doesn't quite feel, it feels at once too broad and at once too specific. So it's almost like the textures and the images and the colors and the symbols in my work, that's kind of like my language of my specific type of queerness that maybe other people relate to. And in my installations and kind of more sculptural pieces, I'm really working a lot of the times to evoke these kind of private spaces of fantasy and queer domesticity and storytelling, to celebrate them and to revel in their secrets. There's such, wonderful meaning and beauty in trans and queer community, especially in that time before, I don't want to get negative with it, but especially in that time before it steeps out to be commercialized and commodified and has its meaning stripped from it. And then of course, there's also a certain tragedy, right, to these private spaces where, it's keeping that expression behind closed doors for safety. in a way. So yeah, that is the end of my slideshow. Thank you so much.
Oh my God, look, thank you. Wow. Just, just as you began, I was like writing down, quick notes again, just looking at the work. I was like, whoa, I was like, okay, so decadence and accumulation and like, collaboration and magic and like all of those things, it's visceral and it's powerful, like these gestures, this coming together, this reliance on each other. I mean, it's beautiful and it's powerful. And it was just, yeah, so I'm so full. Woo, I'm spoiled. Wow. Thank you. Thank you, Katie. Yeah. Thank you, Erin. Thank you, Anukriti. I mean, y'all are just, this is why Paul and David and I lost our minds when we saw your remarkable contributions to this show. You have joined 36 incredible artists, and Queer Archive work can't thank you enough, truly. So yeah, you have even given even more, and made my day, dare I say, my week and month, and given me so much to think about and so much courage to move forward with. So now I'm a water sign, I'm going to get teary. So we're going to go on to some Q&A because you all have like deeply moved me, and I'm grateful. There's a couple Q&As. So I think it would only be right. It would only be right to look at some of those. But beforehand, may we go in the order of presentation and just let us know, just as a collective, please, of any shows or any kind of, thing that you want to just let us know, because I do want people to be able to see you and support you as a family, moving forward. So I'm going to zip while I look at the Q&As that are bubbling up, but tell us what your next moves are, please.
I can go first. I am like just starting out in my career. I just graduated undergrad, so I'm pretty fresh, but I do have a show coming up in October, and it's pretty like in the early stages, so I can't give out a lot of information, but I'm super excited. It's gonna be like my first show, and yeah, it's going to be here in Boston, and once I have more details, I can definitely share that.
I guess I'll go next. So yeah, I just graduated with my master's about a year ago, and so I'm just sort of working in Knoxville and making art. But I currently have a solo exhibition up at a Northwest Art Center in Minot, North Dakota, which I just came back from last week. So if you're anywhere around North Dakota, there's a cool show there.
Hi. So yeah, I don't know really what my updates are. I'm going to be working on a bunch of new quilts, which I'm really excited about. I will be doing a residency at Wasaic Project this summer. If any of you are also going, please come hang out with me.
Amazing, amazing. Congratulations to you all. All right, so we have about 4 minutes. So we're going to quick fire really quickly. So Anukriti, the question is by George, in the progression of your work, what has made you want to choose scale and repetition? How has printmaking played into those features for you?
That's a great question. I think just in my own process of making, I'm really attracted to like grandiosity and like largeness. I want to see, like, I feel like seeing these figures be like superhuman and large kind of does something to you as a viewer. It's very empowering, and it kind of is a way for me to reclaim my own agency and yeah, if that makes sense. In terms of repetition, I'm a very anxious person, so I think it's definitely the tactility and the process of it that I really enjoy. But even like looking at it visually and aesthetically, I find very satisfying. So that is mostly the reason why I'm kind of attracted to that. I'm still pretty new to printmaking. That's definitely something that I'm really interested in pursuing, and I kind of love the process of making prints and the accessibility of it, the ability to make like, you know, multitudes of the same thing. So I feel like it's like repetition, but in a different way, if that makes sense. Yeah, I hope that answered the question.
Yes, and also that makes sense in a very Brian Eno, Peter Schmidt, you know, oblique strategies kind of way. Repetition is a form of change. Okay, so I live for it. I love it. Let's see here. A quick question. Let's see here. I'm looking through because there's, oh, all right. So this one is for Erin. So I've been in awe of your work, Erin, since the UTK Print Symposium 2021. This is by Kate McDonald. Are there any key points, moments, or influential people within your life and or artistic journey that have impacted your practice to get to that complex and highly challenging level of revealing and unearthing your inner journey that you have today?
Tough question. I mean, I think maybe, I don't know. I'm wondering if in some ways the thesis show, I mean, I think the big thing was I was thinking a lot about my family with this work, which is sort of a stressful thing, but I think with the current body of work, it was all just about, I hate lying. I'm like, it's like something that really, really bothers me, and I'm a terrible liar. So I was really thinking about just sort of removing that aspect from my life, because I definitely had this very like disparate, and I think a lot of people have this, where you have like your friend's personality and your parents' personality, your like family personality. And I was feeling really disjointed by those two things. And it's interesting talking about gender performance, because it almost was like this back and forth thing where it was like, from my family, I am like the straight woman, and I play that role. And then when I'm out in society as an artist, and I was just sort of just in the last few years sort of coming to terms with being like a queer artist, but then almost feeling pressure the other way to be like more queer and more outside. So it was really like it was like these two ends were just being like stretched as far apart as possible, and I just kind of wanted to like slingshot them back together. And that was sort of how the show came to be, if that answered the question.
Definitely. Yeah. All right. One more. So let's see here. This one's for Katie. The question is from Anna McIntyre and is saying, you know, how did the End White Silence project go? To put this question in perspective, I'm a Black printmaker based in Quebec and spent the summer working on Black history in this region from the 1600s.
I mean, I hope that people saw the banner.
Right?
And like it made them, you know, think and kind of like address, I don't know, their own biases and whatnot, and their own fear to speak up. Mm-hmm. But if you want to check out, so the exhibition space is called Pinch Hitter Projects. And it's kind of put together by this artist, Heather Raquel Phillips. And it was like a rotating series of banners that were up, kind of like, and textile works that were up at basically outside of her house. So that could be a really cool project to check out and look and see kind of like all the different banners and perspectives that were part of that project. I think it was just as a whole, I think it was a really successful project. And still, I think it's still, you know, still happening after winter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Thanks for your question.
Yeah. All right. So, I mean, I feel like, let's see here, we are a bit past 8:15. So we are coming to time. Wow. I mean, I knew it would be fire, but like, damn, y'all, like, Thank you so much for the generosity you all shared, for your powerful work. I love that each of you are in these beautiful phases. I'm a fan. I'm going to follow, and I hope everyone sees, you know, what was put in the chat. Please follow these dynamic artists, and dare I say support. put some money, tell a friend, go to the exhibitions, and let's continue to lift each other up in really powerful ways. You all have really, you've changed my life for the better. And I mean that. So, I just got to hold that. Again, moist. Jen, would you like to come in?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks to all of you for doing this, and everyone at home. I wish we had a little more time to get to more of these questions, but I think folks got to get on with their evening. So thank you all again. Once again, you can see Unfinished through March 26th. We have an in-person tour with the fantastic Megan Duffy, who runs our New Prints program, on Saturday, March 5th. And we have 2 more Zoom programs this season. Next Tuesday, Nafis will be back with us again to present an event I'm really looking forward to, a conversation between Queer Archive Work and B. Oakley, who runs Genderfail, a publishing, programming, and archiving platform. More details at ipcny.org/public programs, or follow us on Instagram at IPCNY for the most up-to-date info. Thank you again, Katie, Anukriti, Erin, and Nafis. And thank you to my team behind the scenes for putting the talk together, Megan, Emma, and our intern, Maya Fisher. We actually had a little internet problem in the last few minutes, and Erin, I believe you've become the host. So I think, sorry to have to do this at the very end, but I think if you click on the ... on my little picture, you can make me the host. That way I can conclude this program. So thanks everybody. Have a great night. And we will see you at the next one. Thanks, Erin. Thanks everybody. Bye-bye.